instead of whacking.
No, you don't need to whack me.
All
I've
right.
always been nice to you.
I hope you get something serious out of us.
Well, we'll just see. We'll
What
just see what happens. Just to kind of set the plate, just as introductions. My name's Chris Whitman. I'm the University Archivist here at Special Collections and Archives. It's August 7th, 2018, and as part of the Dayton Music History Project, I'm glad to be joined today by Fran Davis Razor and Vicki Van Winkle Craycraft, infamous for Vicki and the Rest and other activities.
Yeah.
So we're just going to kind of wing it today. Usually I'm interviewing one person instead of two.
Okay.
So we'll just kind of maybe hand it back and forth, and maybe I'll ask Fran a question, and I'll ask Vicki. But just to kind of start off with, if you guys want to just talk a little bit about each of your personal backgrounds, where you were born, and how you came to Dayton. Were you born in Dayton? Or were you born elsewhere?
I was born, well, we were born in, were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was born at St. Anne's Hospital. It's now, then it turned into St. Elizabeth in 1949, April 9th, 1949. And went to school. My parents moved a lot, so about every couple years, my dad was a home builder. And so we moved every couple years, so I was in different schools. A lot of different schools, but I ended up graduating at Fairmont East,
Okay.
and that's where I met them.
And that's where you met Fran and the group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Fran, where were you born?
I was born here in Dayton also,
What hospital were you?
St. Elizabeth. But my family moved to Michigan for a while, and we were in Grand Rapids, and we were there till I was 5, and we moved back here, and I actually went to kindergarten here. So we moved to Kettering right away, and that was the Fairmont East. That was that area, and I grew up in Kettering, went to Rolling Fields Elementary School,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
and then I went to D.L. Barnes while they were building Indian Riffle, and then I transferred to Indian
Is that
Riffle.
D.L. Barnes? Is that the old Barnes building
Uh-huh.
up there on Far
Yeah.
Hills? Yeah.
Yeah, and then we all ended up at Fairmont East, with the exception of Mary Hill, and Mary went to a Catholic, all-girl Catholic school.
And who was Mary?
She was our rhythm player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of you, all the rest of you were at Fairmont.
All the rest of us
Fairmont
were at
East.
Fairmont.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe, Vicki, you put an ad in the paper for Mary, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, it sort of happened. I was in Tom and the Tempest band before Vicki and the Rest, and
Tom and the Tempests.
and I was singing for their band for a while, and then I think I quit for some reason. I can't remember why now, but Tom stayed friends with me, and so one night he called me up and he said, "Vicki, why don't you start an all-girl band?" And I said, "Because I've never heard of that before. That just hasn't ever happened. I've
Yeah.
never heard of it." He says, "Well, why can't you be the first?" And I said,
And this is high school, right?
this was when, I was 16.
16. Okay.
And so he said, well, just start thinking up some names. You need to start with your name out front first, because that's how the bands were going at that particular time. It wasn't like the Beatles or anything like
Yeah.
that. Mostly it was the singer was out front, and then then you had your band. So he actually came up with the name Vicki and the Rest. He went through a bunch of names, and then I told him to stop after Vicki and the Rest. And I said, that's kind of catchy. And so he says, "Do you like that one?" And I said, "Well, it's catchy." So then when I told my mom, I said, "I think I'm going to start an all-girl band." And then she said, "Well, how are you going to do it?" And I said, "Well, I think maybe we can put an ad in the newspaper." So she did, and then that's how we got Mary, our rhythm guitar player. And then when I went to school, I was asking people if they knew of any girl guitar players or drummers or anybody that could play, And they said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to get an all-girl band together. So then, about 5 days later, they come walking up to me in the cafeteria, and I think it was you and Penny, wasn't it?
I don't
First.
remember.
And said, I hear you're looking for, girls that can play instruments. And I said, I am. And they told me they could play.
We told a big old fat lie.
And-
Right,
We
right.
really couldn't play.
So I said, well, let's come over to my house and we'll see, how we can do. Well,
All right, you've already answered every question I had.
I did.
Serious?
Well, that was easy.
Tom, what was Tom's?
Tom and the Tempest.
What was
wa-
his name?
Tom Fortner. His dad.
Tom Fortner.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
His
okay.
dad owned
that name-
Fortner Realty.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I remember.
But they were kind of big out then.
Okay.
And so I wasn't in a band at that time. I was in the Jaguars before them. And
When was your first band?
that was when I was 14.
14.
I started there.
Was it the Jaguars?
It was the Jaguars, yeah. And I was in their band for about a year. And then I got...
About what year was this?
What would that be? Let's see. Well, I'm 14. I was born in 49.
65? 60?
No.
Was it pre?
63 maybe?
So what kind of songs were you playing?
It was all rock and roll, whatever was popular at the time.
63. Huh?
Like maybe
Yeah.
Do you remember
Yeah.
what you sang? What any of the songs were?
not anymore. That's 50 some years ago.
Right. All right. Well, let me get a little. So I remember you guys talking before that you came from a musical family.
I
right?
did.
Where were your folks from?
Kentucky,
They were from
Tennessee.
Kentucky?
Yeah. And they were from, the front porch bluegrass people. Everybody in my mom's family played something. Harmonica. My mom played harmonica, guitar, piano. She yodeled, she sang, she did it all. She played spoons and a juice harp. My dad played guitar. And his family wasn't as musical as my mom's family because my mom knew how to read music and they all
Right.
did. And they played at the band shell. They all got together and they
Which
played
one?
in the band shell out there off Riverside.
Okay.
So they were very musical, and I grew up listening to all of them. We'd get together as a family, and they'd all pull out their instruments and start playing.
So they didn't just play at the house; they performed.
Yes, they
out
did.
publicly.
Yeah, I don't.
So
know
you
a lot
remember
about that.
at a very early age
Very
this music
early
being
age.
around, and
Yes, and I regret the fact that I didn't pay any attention. They'd start playing, and I'd
you
hightail
did
it out the
eventually-
back door. So.
Did you make fun of their music?
Not really. I didn't care enough about it to even think
Care
that
one way or the
far.
other.
And my dad taught me how to play chords, and so I did know how to play chords.
You did.
Yeah, when I
You
went to
did.
Vicky's house,
Mhm.
didn't know how to play a song,
Right.
the whole song, but I did know my chords. I still know my chords. I don't know what they're called. I can play them,
Right.
but
It's
Those
a
that play by
revelation.
ear.
You learn the chords, and
Yeah.
it opens up a whole.
yeah.
whole
So
musical
Actually,
world.
Tom Fortner's band taught our first songs.
Yeah.
See, they owned a club, a teen club at that time, called GBU Hall on
Mhm.
Linden Avenue. And so I told him, I said, I have these girls now, but they don't know how to play. So, they kind of know a little teeny bit, like chords
now
and
Mary
stuff.
knew how to play. Mary
Mary
took
did have
lessons.
chords.
She knew how to read music. She was the smart one in the bunch. Yeah.
All right, so she knew musically a
Yes,
little bit.
she did.
You knew some chords.
Yes.
But so you had the band name.
And Leslie came in, our drummer, she came in with a snare. And I was always used to being in other bands before that. And she brought in a snare, and
she
I'm
walked in
thinking,
with a snare drum.
I'm thinking, where's the rest of your drum set at?
Yeah.
And black drums.
It was just funny. It was so funny. And then I was into the Marilyn Monroe phase back then, and I was wearing my hair over like her and all
Yeah.
this. And they were kind of like
Tomboys.
tomboys,
Yeah.
and they thought I was this prissy sissy walking around, you know,
Right, right.
because I liked looking like Marilyn, and so
liked
we
riding
didn't know
horses
that
and
we'd
playing in the
even
mud.
be
Yeah.
able to get along with each other.
Right.
But it started out. We've been great since the beginning, haven't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah. Well, it's a testament that you're still here.
We're
and,
still here.
Yeah, I wear
you know,
makeup now.
Most bands hate.
She wears
you know,
makeup now.
After a few years, most bands can't stand each other anymore. And you guys are still.
Yeah,
Oh,
you guys are
we're like
still buddies.
sisters.
Yeah,
We
that's
are.
great.
Mhm.
So when did you first start playing an instrument? Was it the guitar?
yeah, I only play guitar.
That's okay.
Yeah,
And your dad finally got you to sit still long enough to
Yeah.
teach you a few chords.
I got interested in music when the Beach Boys. That was my
Okay.
first interest.
Okay.
And then of course when the Beatles hit the scene, the Beach Boys just
Yeah.
hit the back road.
Yeah.
They were done. I love them now.
Sure.
Sure. I actually love Elvis now. I didn't like Elvis back then either.
Really.
I loved Elvis.
I can't even imagine
Since
why I didn't.
1956, when I first saw him on TV.
Yeah, we had all kinds of Elvis stuff. My ex-husband and I, and we threw it in the trash.
Really.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness!
See, because when I was born in '68, and by the time I was even musically aware, Elvis was kind of sketchy.
Oh,
he was in his
poor thing.
jumpsuits and kind of on the tail end of things, and was
bless his heart. I
and
feel sorry
kind of
for him
and
now.
so I remember when I got my first job, my boss had a bust of Elvis on the wall on a
Wow.
mantle, and I started cracking jokes, and he didn't think that was funny at all. He was dead serious, and
That's
I've
pretty
since
funny.
learned. Yeah, I learned a little
Wow.
more about Elvis, but that was what I always thought of. It's just kind of this burned out has been.
Well, that's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
I really don't know what I thought, but I didn't like him.
It just
And I loved him.
Yeah.
So when did you?
I actually started singing because my parents owned a restaurant at the time. It was like like you would see in Greece, one of those rock and roll, places where the girls wore ponytails and poodle skirts and
right.
saddles, and So we had a jukebox, and I was 5
Kind of
years.
like Arnold's from Happy Days. Right.
And I was on. I was walking around amongst all these teenagers, and they'd always set me on their lap and say, "You are so cute," and all that. Well, I'd walk around, and I'd sing the songs off the jukebox, and then my mom came to me later on that evening and says, "Vicki," she says, "would you like to take singing lessons?" And I thought, Mom, I don't know what they are. What's singing lessons, And so she said, I said, okay. So Mom got me into singing lessons.
Little kid.
I was 5.
5.
And so the first place I ever sang was the Dayton Art Institute. And I was so little, the microphone wouldn't go down enough for me because I was so tiny. And so he stood me up on a chair and then put the microphone up to me, and then I sang. It was the first.
So that was your first. That was your
It was
first.
my first
kind
time I sang Ivory Tower.
of, was this for where'd you take your lessons?
Wright School of the Theater.
The Wright School Theater, right?
It was on
Downtown.
4th and Jefferson at the time. And I took from them for from 5 to 15. And they treated me like I was their granddaughter or something.
So was this performance at the Art Institute a
I
performance
sang.
for the school or
I sang everywhere. I mean, I was out at least twice a week singing at different places. I sang at hospitals, like Wright Pat and different hospitals. I sang at
Prison.
insane asylums, and I sang
In the
at.
prison, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a prison. Everybody out in front of me, they said, had killed somebody at one time. And I'm standing up there, and I'm only like 15, and I'm going, oh gosh, I don't know.
Well, so you did this all throughout your childhood.
My whole life was nothing but singing.
I mean,
And
were you
they
just-
thought I was a star. I was kind of like a little Shirley Temple back then, because all these people, I was in the newspaper all the time, and it just seemed like,
Everyone's telling you how great your voice is.
yeah, and I don't, when you're little like that, you don't really know how to take it because you're
Right.
still little. and you don't know what to say. And then my mom, of course, started saying, "You gotta say thank you, Vicki," and all that stuff, you know.
I do.
Yeah.
And so I did. I started saying that, and then these men from the hospital, older men, they're not young men, but they would write me like notes saying, "Vicki, you know, you are so great," and all this stuff. And I'm only like 10 or so, you know, and I didn't know how to deal with that either. And I said, "Mom, why are they writing you?" She says, "Because you really mean a lot to them, because they don't have much of a life, you know, where they're at, and, you know, at the hospital."
Did you realize that at the time? I mean, like going to the hospitals and retirement homes and how
Well,
how special it was to people there.
I did not until I got older. My mom started talking to me. She says, "You know, you're really doing a good thing." I said, "But Mom, they kind of scare me, those old people and everything, you know, because I had to
we're old
sing
people.
right next to them, you know." And I'll never forget this one time, though. It was so fun and funny. I used to have a girl that I'd sing with at Mrs. Wright's. We do duets and all this. And we were right pat. And all the young guys from, I guess it was Vietnam War or something. Anyway, they brought them in beds in this one big room, like 20 beds. And we were singing "Goodnight, Sweetheart, Goodnight," you know, me and her. And we looked at each other and we started laughing so hard. We couldn't stand ourselves. We were giggling and giggling. And we had all them young men, like they was probably about 19 to 24, laughing with us. We was all just almost crying
Right.
in there.
Right.
That was so fun, though. That was a good time.
Yeah.
But now that I'm got older, of course, and now I think back to all that. Now that now I see how important it was. But at the time, my mom got me into all this, you know, and
Right.
I was also a dancer too. She got me into all this dancing lessons too. So I was always in contests, and I cut a record in Nashville, Tennessee when I was 12 with Dottie West, and I do have those records, and it was so funny because that's been since I was 12 years old.
How'd you have time to go to school? That sounds...
Well, that's kind of funny
All over
too.
the
When
place.
we had Vicki and the rest, I was falling asleep in like my social
You were so
studies
worn-
class. I was
worn out,
because we
yeah.
wasn't getting
We were
home till
playing
2 or
at the
3 in the morning.
Tropics.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
playing at the Tropics.
All week, every night.
And
Now before Vicki and the rest came around, did you play in any bands
No.
before that? You just played with
I played in the bedroom with my brother.
just with your family and just at the house? And,
Yeah, I never had any aspirations to be in a band. I never
And what were you playing with
Okay.
your brother?
just.
Were you
guitar.
playing bluegrass,
No,
or
we
were
were
you
playing Beatles stuff.
You were playing Beatles
Yeah,
stuff.
we were playing Beatles.
Okay.
He
And-
outdid me by 1,000.
And we
Well, but when
started.
you have a dad and a brother, you know, who know how to play, it rubs
And-
off on you.
And
Yeah.
we started with Beatles songs.
We did.
That was our first songs we played out when we got our band.
Well, I
together.
was going to ask you, how did you kind of make the transition from the pageants and the
To
music
rock and roll?
lessons? Yeah, to being in some rock bands.
Well, my mom was looking at the paper, and the Jaguars said they needed a singer. Well, Mom saw that, and she said, "Why don't you try out?" And I said, "Okay," you know.
Were they your age?
Yeah, they were my age, and so like I said, I was in their band for about a year, and then after that, let's see. Well, I was going to Wilbur Wright High School because I told you we moved from. I mean, I went to Oakwood, I went to Wilbur Wright, I've been to Beaver Creek, Fairmont East. You know, we've really moved around, but.
And the Jaguars were playing out at where were the Jaguars playing? Were they playing like at GBU Hall?
No, I don't remember where we played because, like I said, that's been so long ago. It was 14.
Yeah. But
just-
you played more than
no.
a couple of
Right.
you played-
I probably played with them maybe on 20 or 25 shows with them,
Okay.
and then
And then you got with.
I got Tom and the Tempest.
Tom and the Tempest.
Tom's still out there too.
Mm-hmm.
And was that the same kind of thing, just playing at some local club? And were these like the teen clubs mainly?
Yeah, they were. Back then we had a lot, didn't we?
Yeah, there was
We had a lot of teen clubs.
Well, that came up quite a bit. That, you know, and I couldn't believe people talk about the Kettering roller rink.
Oh, I know.
On David Road, how
Oh, I got a story to
they
tell
talk
you.
about some of some of the groups that played there.
I do have a story on that now. We went there one day, and Paul Revere and the Raiders was playing, and we were all there.
We were already a band. We went. To
We
see
were
them.
already in Vicki and the rest, so we had our cards with us and all. And I was standing, just so happened, I was standing in front of Mark Lindsay, and he kept singing to me, kept looking down and singing to me the whole time. And then, next thing I know,
Well, it's because he looked like Marilyn Monroe. So, yeah.
Exactly.
well, I didn't then. I had bangs and straight hair then, but he called me after I got home. Mark Lindsay did, and I thought, because I came in afterwards, and Mom said some guy named Mark Lindsay just called you not too long ago, about an hour ago, and I said, "Oh, right, Mom, come
Really,
on."
Mom, do you know what that is?
Well, he got our cards. Leslie, our drummer, threw cards up to him, and he looked at the card and he says, "Vicki and the rest," and he says, "Oh, this is an all-girl band." He says, "Are you guys here tonight?" And he'd already been looking at me the whole time,
Yeah.
and the girls behind me was pulling up my hands like, "This is Vicki," you know, and then they were kind of like two people down from me, and then you guys were like down, and then they held up their hands too, you know, like they were, you know. So
It was easy back then, though.
Yeah.
Rock and roll people weren't. They didn't have all these security guards and
Right, but yeah, they were more
personable.
right. They were.
normal acting.
They were,
interacting
you know.
with people. Yeah.
So anyway, he called me back again the next day because Mom said, he said he'll call you tomorrow. And I said, I couldn't hardly believe what she was saying to me. I just said, "Oh, Mom, he's not going to call me back. He's a big star, you know. Nobody's going to do that." Well, then he did. I guess my dad answered the phone, and then they were in bed. This was like 7 in the morning or something, and he called, and I remember it kind of woke me up too, and I heard my dad saying, "Well, she's asleep," or something like that, you know, and Mom said, "Well, who is it?" And he said, "Some guy named Mark Lindsay." And then Mom said, "Well, let her talk to him then." So she handed me the phone, and I ended up talking to him. But like you were saying, you know, the famous bands, they did have some famous bands there at
Yeah.
the skating rink.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that was really neat to.
It was.
You know, that's just down the street from where I live. I mean, and I used to, you know, and when I was a kid, I
You're
rollers-
from Kettering, are you?
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
you?
yeah. I grew up in Oakwood and then moved to
So
Kettering.
did she.
I was in Oakwood for a couple of years.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived on Hadley.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where'd you live?
We lived on Ridgeway.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's a nice street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was.
Mhm.
We lived there. We moved there when I was like 2, and moved when I was 14.
Wow.
And
Where'd you go after that?
I went to Miami Valley School,
Did you?
and and then briefly to Colorado, and then out to Wright State, and
Seems like everybody goes to Colorado.
yeah, I was lucky to get out.
Oh.
So.
Oh, I
So-
also wanted to say, because I kind of wanted to bring up the things that stand out to me more.
Yeah.
I went to New York to try out for Ted Mack Amateur Hour, and that was like,
Ted Mack.
yeah, it was big, like, what's those shows on today that we watch? The Voice and
Okay.
things like that. It was big like that.
Music talent
Yes.
show. Yeah.
And so me and my grandparents, we took a train up there, and well, I had to wait out in this waiting room, and it was so hot in there. And my grandpa knocked on the door because they were auditioning all kinds of people, and they said, he said, "Could you take my granddaughter next, because she's only 9 years old, And it is pretty hot out here, and they were sitting in a huge room full of air conditioning. They had all these, like about 10 judges when I walked in, and so they asked me and said, well, what are you going to do? And they said, I said, I'm going to sing. And they said, what are you going to sing? I said, Sweet Old Fashioned Girl. And so I auditioned for them. And then afterwards, they wanted to put me on the next week's show. I wasn't expecting that. So I didn't end up going because we didn't make hotel room for hotel rooms at
Right.
the time and
You're
all
from
that.
Dayton and-
It
right,
was-
yeah.
I wasn't expecting to get on that soon,
Yeah.
like the following weekend. And so that kind of...
That's
I mean, at
good to
least
know.
they liked me, you know. At least
right. Well, that's yeah. You proved that. Okay.
That at
I'm
least,
not
you
just
know,
dating.
yeah.
But,
Mhm.
yeah. So how did you decide that you wanted to get into a band?
When somebody came up to me and said, "There's a girl in our school that wants to start an all-girl band," I thought,
So word
okay.
got out that Vicki was recruiting,
yeah, and that's when I decided I wanted to do it.
and so you knew some chords, you know, how to
Yeah.
play, and
school cafeteria is
Yeah.
where we met.
We hunted her down. She was hunting for us.
so it
we
was
were
the
hunting
school
for her.
cafeteria,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys were.
Fair
So
buddies.
had you started talking to some other people and be like,
Well, Penny
you know
and
what?
Leslie.
What if we?
I met
played with
Penny and
Vicki?
Leslie when we were 12. So the drummer and the bass player, we had known each other since we were just kids. And we were singing from day one, 3-part harmony all over the neighborhoods. And everybody said, you girls ought to be in a band. And all the churches we went to wanted us to sing up in front of the church. And we were real shy, and we weren't going to do that for anything. You couldn't have held a gun to our head and made us do that. But if we were out just playing and having fun, we were singing. So it was there. It was
So they
in
can see
there.
your pretty face.
See what she does.
You were always really
She's
shy.
the boss.
You were really shy.
Oh,
weren't
Yeah,
you?
oh,
She
very.
was.
Very, very.
I
very.
remember from some of the pictures, and you'd be kind of.
She
standing-
was.
Yes.
She always stood and looked down. And
Yes.
All
This
that.
guitar
Yeah.
was always my shield.
Right,
It really was my shield. And
and then you had Vicki, who
and she's still Vicki, and I'm still Fran. So she's still, she's still more powerful in personality than I am.
I am?
But you're just born with natural traits. That's just
oh
what
sure,
it is to
oh
it.
sure.
So I didn't
I
think,
was so shy though growing up.
not with us.
No.
Well,
by
but
the time I had
it's
met
funny
you.
how there's some people who, when they're up on a stage,
Shine.
yeah, and then maybe in private
Yes.
might be.
I can't
the
believe you
opposite.
said that, because I always told my mom, I said, because I'd say, Mom, I'm so nervous. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I get, especially in contests and stuff. And, because that's always, you have people out there, if they don't win, they're not going to like you if you win, So I didn't like that very well. And so, I lost my train of thought. What was I getting
How
to now?
that you were never shy on stage.
Right. Once I would get up singing, then I had confidence in myself, and I had confidence only because I believed Jesus gave me that talent.
That voice.
That it was just because when my mom first brought me to my singing teachers, she said, "Well, let me hear her sing something." So I sang a song, and she says, "Well, I don't really have to do much with her. She's just a natural."
Yeah.
So, and I thought, "What's a natural?" But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
it's 5. So, and it's like.
You were a natural, but you also.
It was like
You
things
also sang a lot.
things went
Yes.
so big for me just quickly.
Right.
I mean, it was like I felt like a Shirley Temple the way
Well,
everybody
you were
was
on
treating
stage
me
from
from the time I was
years
5.
old. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And I was a teeny weeny 5. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm only
With a big
5.
voice. Yeah.
And she's still teeny weeny.
5'1" right still. But my mom said, "Are you sure that little girl of yours should be walking, because she's so tiny?"
Right.
I probably look like I was a year old instead of 5. But anyway, that's kind of how all this
Yeah,
stuff kind
yeah.
of took place.
Okay.
But like the next big thing that I really enjoyed was going to Nashville, Tennessee, and meeting, and I was cutting a record, and
This was when you were 12 or
I
whatever?
was 12.
How
And
did
my
you-
singing teacher took me down there, and my parents took me down. And
For that reason, to cut a record?
okay, my dad's army buddy friend, he knew the people in that